to Libertarian Counterpoint. I am your host, James Just. With me today is John Cameron. John, there's some interesting things on the topic list today. One of them is a week or so ago, Seymour Hersh claimed that the U.S. Navy was behind the Nord Stream 2 pipeline explosion that we had, what was it, 3 months ago now, 4 months ago? It's a big environmental disaster. And one could argue that's kind of the cause of the European energy crisis. You could make the argument for that. And so what do you think about that? You know,
Well, Seymour Hersh is getting kind of old, but he's been a respected journalist and editor, publisher, Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter, and he's got lots and lots of connections. And basically, he's saying that Biden followed through on a statement he made in public. And that he made a statement in public on air, it was recorded, that that they couldn't allow the Nord Stream, is that what it's called, pipeline, to go through, because then he said it wasn't going to happen, because then Russia could hold Europe hostage for natural gas. And then, you know, we have maneuvers going on in the area, and somebody blew it up. There's no reason for the Russians to blow it up, because they could just turn it off. There's no reason for the Germans to blow it up, because they need the gas.
well, they could also just turn it off.
And they could also turn it off on this end. So really, there's no reason for anybody outside of meddling busybodies, i.e. the U.S., China. I don't think China has a reason to do it, because, you know, they're sort of buddies with Putin. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. And it's like, you know, like the number of COVID or with COVID, we're never going to find out. We're absolutely never going to find out. It's certainly interesting theater. I mean, if, you know, people's lives weren't at stake in more ways than one, it would be kind of amusing to watch all these machinations. But I think there's probably a pretty good chance he's right. I don't know if you could find a bookie to take the bet in Vegas, although they'll take a bet on anything. English bookies, maybe. They take bets on almost anything. But I have a feeling, I can't, what do you think? I mean, who else would want to do that?
Well, the question is who would want to do it, but I'm curious, it's not just who, it's kind of why. Why would the United, because as you said, the fear is that if you have this pipeline, that Putin and Russia will have, what's the word we're looking for? My sleep-addled brain here, John. Putin would have leverage against Europe, but that doesn't need to be. Europe has plenty of natural gas available if they would choose to access it.
So that's that. We could talk about that. I mean, England has chosen not to go into their shale deposits. England, well, not England, but the UK could, with just the natural gas that's available out of the North Sea, with a little work, supply Europe with enough gas. The Germans have been building liquefied natural gas, not liquefied petroleum gas. That's a different thing, much more highly explosive, makes for good bombs, like crazy, you know, because they got a huge, wonderful manufacturing economy there. They got great engineers, they got great machinists, all the rest of that. So, I mean, there's plenty of natural gas in the world. It's 1/8 as greenhouse gassy as I think it's even less than coal-fired power plants. I mean, the only thing that's less natural gassy that you can flip a switch on is a nuclear power plant. And Angela Merkel turned all those off, and even though she's a physicist and knew they were perfectly safe in Germany. So, I mean, this is a problem. This is a craziness of our own making, and I've been trying to figure out why people have been doing this. I mean, because the radical environmentalists don't have power. They are simply radical environmentalists. Why are the people that do have power letting these crazies who are talking about global extinction, which isn't going to happen, even if the Earth warms by 4 or 5 degrees, certainly not people. People will be around way after lots of animals start wilting and dying. Well, why are they doing this stuff? I have no idea. I don't see what the end game is other than to cause havoc.
Well,
and governments do benefit whenever there's havoc because they take power. So, but this seems like an awfully dirty way to get power.
Well, you're thinking there's an end game there, John. They don't think that far. It's clearly
It's just power.
It's just the short-term power or, sense of virtue. The self-satisfaction of I'm more virtuous than the other people. It can be quite personal.
This is, I don't see how you can connect up blowing up natural gas pipeline and virtue signaling, but what the heck? I don't know. We might have beat this thing to death. This is a mystery inside a conundrum.
Yeah,
wrapped around a puzzle.
And that's the other. Yeah. The other option is some environmentalist wacko, group blows it up. That's kind of the other. But then, wouldn't you announce that at some point?
And then also, wouldn't you have been killed by all of the navies in the world who should have been protecting that pipeline? I mean, you got a valuable resource like that. It's protected. I mean, you try to mess with the Panama Canal and see what happens to you. So,
I don't know. Maybe they think sitting at the bottom of the ocean is protection enough.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. But here's one of these other things we don't know. The collapse of Kamala Harris, which we actually do know, that the collapse of Kamala Harris. Why anybody thought Kamala Harris was a national political figure to begin with. I mean, she was a complete failure on the presidential, as her presidential run, as Tulsi Gabbard famously pointed out. It made clear. But yet then
Is Tulsi the one who eviscerated her in about 1 minute on stage?
Yeah.
I'm hoping Tulsi runs for president, actually.
Well, that'd be interesting. But what's she going to run as? She's no longer a Democrat. And is she going to join the Republicans?
I think she said she's going Republican.
Well,
we haven't had a hot female. We haven't had a female president. We haven't had a hot female president. And I know this is completely just, I'm a male chauvinist pig for doing that. But she's a veteran. She's smart. She's educated. She's tough. She's open-minded enough to change her position on things. She's a great speaker.
And we are not talking about Kamala Harris, by the way, on that one.
No.
Because Kamala Harris is none of those things.
Is it Kamala or Kamala?
Kamala. It depends who, I don't know, tomato. Yeah. I think it depends.
Well, see, the problem with, California politics makes Louisiana political corruption look like kindergarten. I mean, California politics are rough, and they're dirty. And, Kamala played that game. She had a horrible record as a prosecutor, violated probably every rule and law there was to get some convictions, so she'd have high conviction standards. She was an even worse attorney general. She's probably responsible for, with her lawsuit against Backdoor, the deaths of 1,000 prostitutes in the state of California, and all this stuff just slides right off of her. The only people that benefited by making Backdoor illegal were pimps and thugs. It certainly didn't help prostitutes. She withheld exculpatory evidence in 2 capital crime cases, and because of absolute immunity for prosecutors, she can't be touched. And then you want to run this person for president. The theory that stands out was that, and they're saying she wasn't a check-the-box, candidate to get Biden elected. But most of my kind of diehard Republican people who really know politics, friends of mine, say they knew Joe Biden was a weak candidate, and they didn't want to, as he declined, obviously mentally declined as we knew he would, and he is. Saw a picture of him the other day on the web wearing his pants backwards, but that's a whole different story. That anybody stronger than Kamala, they would have wanted her to take over, just ease Joe out. But she's so bad and so inept and so incompetent that Sleepy Joe is a better candidate. So it's funny that they're now, even the left is sabotaging her, and I don't know. That must mean that Biden's in a really, really bad way if they're doing everything they can do to undermine Kamala. What's your theory on it? Well, why the left's going after her? I know why the right does, because it's easy
the left's
pickings.
going after her because she's terrible. She's just
never
terrible.
Stopped them before.
Well, yeah, but if they want to win the White House. They can't have Kamala driving the ticket down. So they want to figure out a way to get her out. And who knows? Let's hope that they don't try to get her in some judgeship or something just to kind of move her off. Yeah, that'd be even worse. Because at least in the vice presidents, you can't really hurt anything, right? You can't do anything. Vice presidents, all you do is you get that one vote in a tie. That's your only real power.
Somebody said that vice president is about as useful as a bucket of spit. Maybe I've got my quotes, but it's an interesting job. It's like first lady or first gentleman.
Yeah, you get sent to the funerals, and you're a thing. You're not. You're kind of waiting around for the other guy to die, which
or go under the knife or whatever.
Yeah. So, and at that point, if you do if she does come to power in some kind of way like that, you're a figurehead, right? You're like Ford. You're just kind of a figurehead, marking time until the next election, and so you run by the administration, kind of the party elite. She's not going to run anything. She's not capable of running anything, and we all know that now. But of course, any of us here in California who actually paid attention, we knew these kind of things from this long time ago.
Well, never mind. Newsom's a whole different show.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole show all by itself. Yeah. But this is one we could have do a whole show on this one. A GOP lawmaker, Thomas Massie, wrote a one-sentence bill to abolish the Department of Education, and some people are unhappy about that. So, but what about all the things the Department of Education does? Well, that's the whole point of getting rid of the Department of Education, is because they've screwed up everything they touch. Right.
Well, and the Department of Education is basically a tool of the teachers' unions in the country, and the teachers' unions are basically the only reason, other than New York and California, that Democrats ever win national office or many local offices. So it's completely politically biased toward the left and toward the I would say kind of fringe left. It's fought against some basic educational principles that have worked forever, and they threw them out like phonics. Kids can't read now because they're trying to teach them some kind of stupid crap in school that doesn't work, whereas, just because phonics was favored by George Bush, it's a bad thing. Phonics worked. It might not be pretty, it might not be sexy, it might not be avant-garde, but it worked. And so the place is a mess. It's a mess that's got $200 billion of our dollars. And I don't know anybody that has children that gets up in the morning and says, "Gosh, I wish bureaucrats in Washington were completely in charge of my children's education," which they basically are. Well, so I think it's great. How about half a line? Cancel. Well, that'd be one sentence.
Yeah. It's one sentence.
An action sentence.
Cancel the and abolish the Department of Education.
Education.
And if you want other stuff done, well, Congress has the ability to get other stuff still done. It's not like they can't move those to the Treasury Department or Health and Human Services or whatever department you want to move those functions to, if you really wanted to move those functions.
Well, I could do a one sentence for all of those departments too.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah. As a libertarian, I mean.
But they're complaining about things like, well, what about student loans? Well, the fact that they screwed up student loans. Student loans are really going to be your reason to keep the Department of Education instead of your reason.
Pell Grants.
Instead of your reason to get rid of it, right? The student loan debacle.
You just want to give away money to send people to school to get degrees that they can't use.
Yeah.
So at least make them borrow the money so they have to pay it back. Yeah.
Well, Pell Grants, actually, you could make a case for Pell Grants, for a base level of Pell Grants, so poor people have the same opportunity to go to basic colleges as anybody else. But the modern way is where, you can buy a Cadillac education on some future theoretical earnings that you don't have, rather than a Pell Grant, which is a small grant. Pell Grants are only like $6,000 a year. They're not that much. And so you have to manage your money. But the student loans, they'll give you money for anything. You get $26,000 for that. I'm not going to mention any ology degrees, but just almost everything that ends in an ology. Well, so, it's the student loans. it's again.
I think it's a great idea, and you know, the fact that people are talking about it. I mean, everybody's known that the Department of Education has been a mess since Ronald Reagan wanted to get rid of it right after it started.
Yeah.
You know, for the same reasons. Why are we doing this? We don't need to give people in Washington control over kids. Yeah.
Yeah, and look what's come. Now our education
Now it's
system
$200 billion
is
plus.
worse than it's ever been. The
Spending more money.
The satisfaction with the education system is as worse as it's ever been, and yet we still continue to do the same thing that has caused the problem. You would think that we'd get smarter than that. But we're not, because we got the two stories here. FBI agents have misused FISA data to surveil a political party in the U.S. Congressman finds, which, of course, is no secret to us. We've been pointing out problems with the FBI here on this show forever. And so that has made this tool under threat now, because as politicians now say, hey, they're looking at us, not just average Joe citizen. So now that they're surveilling
the whole FISA thing was a joke from the start, and anybody that thinks that the FBI is going to follow the rules has never heard of J. Edgar Hoover. I mean, you know, there's this quaint fairy tale that the FBI was started as the Untouchables. Basically, they wanted somebody who was impervious to political sway, and you couldn't uncorruptible, and you couldn't be bribed, couldn't be bought, couldn't be coerced. Well, it's pretty obvious from, you know, the first Trump election through the second one that the FBI is basically a law unto itself and isn't held accountable by anybody. So, you know, the idea that they were going to follow rules on FISA data is just, and they said, when they looked at it, oh yeah, they've made a lot of mistakes. They made a lot of mistakes they didn't quite do this right, and they didn't quite do that right. They made mistakes. Basically, they didn't make any mistakes. They just ignored the rules and pretended like they didn't understand what they were doing.
Yeah, and of course, if we do that, then we end up with
in
charges.
Jail. Yeah, or fined.
If at best fined.
Yeah.
It's that's the real problem, is that they don't have to follow the rules, and when they don't follow their own rules, they go, oh well, we just didn't understand our own rules. I don't know.
We made a mistake. I mean, it's what isn't if we break a law, it's ignorance of the law is no excuse, right?
Right.
I mean, just because you don't understand the law, and who can understand it? Because laws and regulations in this country, you could print them on single sheets of paper, they'd be as tall as the Empire State Building, I think, maybe taller. So nobody understands any of this stuff, but we don't get away with it, and they do.
Yeah.
And so the FISA warrant thing has always been a disaster waiting to happen. It's been misused from the beginning, and I think it's time to end it. Well, it's supposed to end on the 31st of December 2023. That's this year, and I'm hoping that Congress will finally
not reauthorize it.
I was going to say grow something, but I don't think we can say that on the air.
Well, we can say that we can hope that they don't reauthorize it.
Yeah,
so
I hope that they show some gumption.
And let it die.
Yeah,
let it die.
But
you know, how many of them are tied for some way? There's so much. The law enforcement industrial complex is strong, John.
Well, and then also, if you know, basically, these folks spend all day long digging up dirt on people, and they have the tools that, I mean, you're way more techie than I am, but they have tools to basically access everybody's computers, everybody's phones, all the airways, all cell phone conversations, anything you've ever put into the cloud. And we know that when they ask all the tech companies for stuff, whether they're supposed to give it to them or not, they just give it to them. So what kind of dirt do they have on every single person in every elected office in this country? So I think the chances of it are pretty slim, but I'm hoping that somebody actually gets up with some fire and brimstone and talks about it on the floor of Congress. That's what I'm hoping.
Well, I mean, they have talked about it on the floor of Congress. I just don't know. I still don't understand how, with the history of the FBI, the long history of FBI abuses, people can still trust the FBI. They've never been a trustworthy organization in their entire history. They have lied in courts. Their lab deliberately produces false results. What they did to Martin Luther King is, clear. Why are we still
Well, you can go on and on and on. I mean, basically, they still. I mean, there are FBI profilers who have written best-selling books, and any scientific study of profiling says it's as scientific as phrenology. Remember in the early 19th, well, no, you don't remember. In history books, they used to be able to tell if somebody was a criminal by the bumps on their heads. So, profiling that they talk about, and they have all these shows on TV about these wonderful FBI agents, it's completely unscientific. It's like lie detector tests. A monkey can get around a lie detector test, but we glorify all this stuff and think that somehow one of these unaccountable government agencies is going to actually be truthful and forthright. And it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Not.
And they tell us that we have to be held accountable or we're not going to behave properly. But they can be held unaccountable and that they are expected to behave properly. There's something fundamentally wrong there. So there's a shameless attack. There's an article from Reason about a shameless attack on a climate change dissenter, and my sleep-addled brain, John, is not remembering what this article is about. So I'm gonna count on you to remember your own research here.
The anti-environmentalist.
I can't remember his name, and so
I can't remember his name either. But he's a very well-respected environmental scientist. He was second in command of under the Obama administration of basically environmentalism. That isn't what it's called. I forget the name because I'm also a little tired. I'm going to blame it on the cold I'm fighting. Not COVID. I've tested every day for a week. So the man wrote a book called Unsettled, basically because all of the people that in this crazy environmental movement, there are some environmental issues, I grant you that. There's probably been some global warming. It might be attributed to increased CO2 in the atmosphere. My theory is it's probably more to do with urban heat islands and cyclical solar flares. But everybody thinks it. So I'll go along with it and say yes. But the more radical people make these gross overstatements and these exaggerations about environmental disasters coming, like hurricane seasons are going to get worse because of global warming. And the newspapers print it, they spout it, and nobody calls them on it. And he basically just called the environmental movement on all of their exaggerations and all the unproven stuff. Yes, there is a likelihood but it's far from proven. There is the idea that we're going to have more severe weather events is 51-50 at best, but the environmentalists act as if it's a proven thing. So he was attacked by pretty much everybody, and it's a favorite legal trick. You don't attack the evidence, you attack the witness. And in every single attack, and Reason, wonderful magazine that it is, did an article on this, and every single attack was not about what he said, because basically all he was doing was quoting chapter and verse accepted peer-reviewed studies. He was simply mentioning numbers from those studies and showing things from those studies and graphs from those studies. Like he said that, the Greenland ice sheet, everybody says, and the Greenland ice sheet goes up and down like this, and it has since forever, and it has nothing to do with CO2. And nobody attacked any of his science, any of the statements, any of the graphs, any of the peer-reviewed studies. They attacked him by cherry-picking and accused him of cherry-picking. So it's this typical attack the spokesperson, not what they're saying, attack the speaker and not the facts, and it's shameless. And he was simply trying to point out, and quite rightly, that the fringe environmentalists get away with some outlandish claims and nobody calls them on it. And that's it.
Yeah, and that is a real problem, actually, the fact
Well, yeah, because the fringe environmentalists are ones that get all this stuff passed that, they're gluing themselves to $1 million pictures because they think that if you put gas in your car, human beings are going to be extinct in 8 years. And there's no science anywhere that supports that. There are no reputable environmentalists anywhere that support this lunacy. But these people get government regulation to happen. They get nuclear power plants closed down. They get people to stop using natural gas. They're having to fire up coal-fired power plants in Europe because they don't have natural gas.
Don't have natural gas, and they close a lot of their small,
and they
clean
called all their
plant.
nuclear power plants.
Yeah.
And so they're having to run more coal. I mean, how crazy is that?
Yeah, we've gone, in order to go forward, we've gone backwards. And sometimes you have to take a step back to make 2 steps, 3 steps forward. But, you have other options. You have better options than coal, right? You should never have gone, you don't throw away your base options until you actually have a replacement in place. No. And they say, well, we're going to get rid of all these base power plants. We're going to get rid of the
what happens if the wind don't blow and the sun don't shine?
Right, and they didn't have anything in place. So when something happens, when a
little war in the Ukraine.
Yeah, when something happens,
which full circle back to Joe Biden basically is responsible for from back when he was a vice president.
So we get this. So we've got 2 minutes left, and I want to cover this last one just because it's here. North Korean hackers and others are attacking U.S. hospitals for some reason. Now, is this one of these things? I didn't get a chance to read the whole article, so I'm hoping, John, you actually got a chance to read this one. But is this one of these things where they're attacking hospitals? They put those, they lock down the files and then do one of those ransomware things?
It's not. I mean, there's not that much ransomware. I didn't, and again, I didn't go beyond the Wired article, and I hate to even give that piece of crap paper credit for quoting them, but there is some ransomware attacks. But I'm not quite sure what North Korea is getting out of it. And it's probably, you're right, because, again, I'm a little sleep-deprived myself. I can't see any other reason for North Korea to hack U.S. hospitals other than do ransomware.
Yeah,
they do. North Koreans have certainly stolen money from blockchain accounts. So that would be my guess. But the thing about ransomware is that nobody wants to admit it's happening. So you don't know. They probably are locking down patient data at hospitals and demanding money for it. But we're not really sure. But they're pretty sure it's coming out of North Korea.
Yeah, well, it's North Korea needs income, and whatever income they can get, if they can get it from someplace, they're going to get it from someplace. I think it's probably that simple. It's an economic resource for them.
Okay.
Yeah. So this comes to our close tonight, John. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for watching us. And Richard, we apologize for technical difficulties. Richard was supposed to be here with us tonight, but it didn't happen.
Maybe 2 weeks from now.
Maybe 2 weeks from now.
I want to look up and see that man's handsome face right there on the screen one day.
All right. Thank you for being with us. And please remember
to
love everybody.
Appreciate it.
Good night.